Good afternoon. Welcome to this regular meeting of the Board of Estimate and Taxation for March 26, 2025. I'm Steve Brandt, President of the Board. Before we begin the meeting, I would ask the clerk to read the reminder to participants in this meeting.
I want to offer a friendly reminder to all members, staff, and the public that these meetings are broadcast live to enable greater public participation. These broadcasts include real-time captioning as a further method to increase the accessibility of our proceedings to the community. Therefore, all speakers need to be mindful of the rate of their speech so that our captioners can fully capture and transcribe all comments for the broadcast. We ask all speakers to moderate the speed and clarity of their comments.
This time I'll ask the clerk to call the roll so we can verify the presence of a quorum.
Commissioner Fry is absent. Commissioner Obene, absent. Commissioner Payne,
Present.
Commissioner Chugtai,
Present.
Vice President Pre Stinson,
Present.
President Brandt.
Present.
There are 4 members present.
Let the record reflect that we have a quorum, and I believe the mayor will be here momentarily. I want to now acknowledge that we are meeting today on land that has historically been the home of the Dakota people. And we will now proceed to our agenda, a copy of which was posted for public access to the city's Legislative Information Management System, which is available at lims.minneapolismn.gov. And board members, the agenda for today's meeting is before us. However, I would like to move a couple of items. I would like to put item 6, new business, right after the acceptance of minutes, to be followed by the proposed charter resolution, which would move down the BET work plan discussion. May I have a motion to adopt that as amended?
So moved.
Second.
We have proper motion before us. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. The agenda is adopted. Next is the acceptance of minutes from the January 22nd, 2025 meeting. May I please have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have proper motion before us. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed, say no. Ayes have it, and the minutes are accepted as presented. Item 4 on the agenda is the acceptance of public comment. And I'll inquire with the clerk whether anybody has signed up. Okay, no one has signed up to speak today, so we will continue with the next agenda item. However, I just want to remind the public that they have the opportunity to sign up to address any item that is on that day's Board of Estimate and Taxation agenda. And item number Our next item is the receipt of accessible projects from the City Council for which the Board of Estimate will consider approving the issuance of tax-exempt general bond assessment bonds at a future meeting. Mr. Allen, do you have anything to add to that? Okay. I would then ask the clerk to receive and file that item. The next item on our agenda is a proposed charter resolution. This should look very familiar to the board because we passed a very similar resolution last May, and I want to point out for the public who hasn't been necessarily following that discussion that the purpose of the amendment is essentially threefold, proposed amendment. One is to give us a 7th member on the Board of Estimates so that we are no longer the only body elected by the people of Minneapolis that doesn't have a tie-breaking, only local body that doesn't have a tie-breaking number of members. And secondly, to make that 7th member a 3rd member elected by the public, in addition to the 2 we have now. And then also to change the name of the Board of Estimate and Taxation to something that more closely reflects its current duties. Now, you may ask yourselves, why are we repassing this resolution, or why am I asking you to repass this resolution? You will recall we asked the Charter Commission last May to adopt, to consider and make a recommendation in favor of these three changes. The Charter Commission, in its wisdom, decided not to assent to that. I think it had more to do with the Charter Commission's long-standing feelings about the Board of Estimate and Taxation rather than the substance of the changes themselves. But that was one route to initiate a charter amendment. A second route is to ask the City Council to ask the Charter Commission to consider such an amendment, a set of amendments. Now, you might ask, didn't they already say no? However, the difference is, if the Charter Commission comes back to the City Council and says no, the City Council does have the option of either considering the input of the Charter Commission and again saying no, or to put it, our original proposal on the ballot. And so that's why I bring this before you today. And I will now, having introduced this, open this up for any discussion. All right, Commissioner Payne?
Thank you, President Brandt. I think this is something that is part of a broader conversation around government structure, how the administrative and legislative branches function together, and where BET fits into that. So I think this is an appropriate discussion to have in City Council.
Commissioner Priest-Stinson.
I was going to make similar remarks, but also just generally speak in support, especially to adding another member. I think just in general, the way that government's going in our country, having another voice to also balance out those that already have elective duties, it makes sense to add another member, not just to have a tiebreaker, but also to have fair and equitable representation from the public for something that has some independent oversight and decision-making, which I think, again, in these days and times is all the more important. So I speak in favor of that. In all honesty, I'm neutral about changing the name. It does make sense. It's not anything that I would fight tooth and nail for. I'm more specifically interested in number one, but I wouldn't fight with you over it. So I generally speak in support, and I thank you for bringing it forward and putting in the work over the last really 2-3 years on it. Thank you for that.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Okay. Would somebody care to move the resolution?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Okay. Clerk will call the roll since this is a resolution.
Commissioner Fry.
Aye.
Abene is absent. Payne.
Aye.
Chugtai.
Aye.
Vice President Priest-Stinson.
Aye.
President Brandt.
Aye.
There are 5 ayes.
All right, and the clerk will, I hope, catch me afterwards, make sure I sign as appropriate. The next item on our agenda is the BET work plan discussion. And I bring this up because we will, I hope, shortly have a staffer, and we need to specify beyond what's the considerable duties that are in the JAQ, which I believe stands for Job Analysis Questionnaire, for this person. We left a substantial portion of the expected duties to be filled in under the heading of research that would be conducted for the board. And so I have put forward in the agenda some additional specific items that could be considered as part of the work plan for this person. And I don't envision today being the end of that discussion. I also want to be clear, and I thank Mr. Hammer for bringing up these points, that in several of the points, we are delving into areas that, in order to be enacted, would need to be an action of the city council. And I'm not trying to usurp the city council in any way. We would leave their powers with them, of course, and stick to our knitting in terms of the charter. But I think one benefit we can provide is the provision of information to help maybe move the process along in a couple of areas. So, any discussion? Commissioner Priest-Stinson.
Just very quickly, I would say on the, whose responsibility is for certain things. I think one thing to consider is just a broader way to put it, is in the coordination with other departments. So if that work, and it is work of IGR, our new staff person could coordinate with them and let them know the needs of the board and what we're considering, and can work with them to let them do their work and correspond back and forth, rather than to specifically delegate that they're doing the research. So that, I just had that quick comment there. Generally, I think it looks pretty good. It's along the lines that we're talking about. I don't know if it's appropriate to give a quick update, or if you want to actually wait for updates on the process of where we are.
Commissioner Priest-Stinson, if you think it would be appropriate to give that update here.
Very quick.
You've been more involved in the process in the last couple of weeks than I have, so do you want to tell people what schedule we're on?
Yes, so we have concluded interviews number 1. Our questionnaires that we completed as those that participated in that first panel, which was someone from HR, myself, I'm missing a person. Who am I missing? There was 3 of us. The Parks Board, yes, our finance director. So we completed that. We sent those forward. The second round of interview is being scheduled for the 2 individuals. Either just quick, can't say too much, but this is looking really good for us. I'm glad that we took the time to walk through this process. I think we're going to find a really good fit. I have also, just to be transparent, the original proposal was for a set of 3 different people to conduct interview number 2. But I've asked the president, and he agrees that there should be, for continuity, 1 person from the first one to be there. Otherwise, it's kind of strange to not have, again, the continuity. So I have volunteered myself to be part of the second interview as well, just so I can share some additional feedback beyond just what we wrote on paper, what occurred in the first one. So I feel that we're on track to get our staffer probably sooner than we might have thought. And an individual that's able to work with the level of autonomy that we would like, so that we're not having to heavy hand supervise. The one other thing that I will bring up that we haven't really discussed that is related to the work plan is, for this individual who is going to be a full-time employee, what will professional development look like for that person? This is somebody that should be developed and be able to grow within their role within the city. And so I would like to think, even with the nature of our board and the independent nature, that they would have access to whatever resources any other employee would have for their professional development. And it should be noted that whoever's serving as president should be fostering that development. So I just want it to be noted and make sure that we're in agreement, and that it's part of the work plan, that's part of the discussions, is the individual's professional development. And that is the update.
Thank you, Commissioner Priest-Stinson. I appreciate your suggestion on professional development, and will probably rely to some extent on your expertise in that area. I'm sorry, Mayor, do you have a comment?
Thank you, Mr. President. I've got a comment on the potential work plan projects, if that's what we're going over now.
Yes.
So these are all items that I would argue could be done or would need to be done in general. The question is whether several of these items are duplicative. And so I give you, stuff like, clarifying and executing all duties listed in the JAQ, familiarization with the city budget, levy debt situations, the geographic analyses, all that would be, I would argue, within the purview of this particular position. There are other items here, the mapping of dollar flows from sales and special taxes through DAF and other funds, the FYFD, the projected versus actual, how levy increases are adopted, the year-end balance, stuff like that. It's not that it shouldn't be presented here, it certainly can be, but that work is already done by the finance department, and the concern is that we would just be having duplicative work.
Thank you for that input. Commissioner Fry, I would just say that I haven't seen those specific things surface so far in my 3 years, and if they're available off the shelf, then certainly it would make sense to proceed
Yes.
as you suggest.
Yes.
Any other discussion?
Mr. President, I believe, may I? I believe many of those items are available literally off the shelf. And so certainly that could be information that could be provided.
All right. Perhaps I should have a conversation with the CFO about maybe information that is available but just hasn't been presented.
That could be.
Commissioner Priest-Henson.
I was just going to say that I generally agree with what the mayor is saying, and kind of going back to what I was saying about, I was specifically speaking to that latter part, Mayor, when I was talking about they could coordinate with the department that already does that.
Makes sense.
I think this person would be able to, I think one of the things that we all named, especially for President Brandt and I, but really for all of us and anybody in the role, is yes, the information is available. We know that our current process is going through our CFO, who then delegates who gets us that information. And so, our finance department is busy and taxed. I think what this individual would be doing, we can clean up the language some, is really dissecting some of that to give the information to us in a way that's digestible for what we're doing. There's a lot of information that we get that's a little more in the weeds and maybe more than what we need. It could also be coordinating with the finance department to give us slightly different versions of the presentations that you all already get in your other official capacity, but to give it to us in a way that's more specific to us, and just dissect it in a different way. And so I agree with you in that way, and I think that's really more of what we're getting at the individual doing, is really that coordination and giving us the information in a way that's digestible, but also is specific to what we're doing here so that we don't get lost in the weeds and confused. And so, yeah, I'm in alignment with you on that.
All right. I will ask the clerk, would it be appropriate to receive and file this, or simply to move on? Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, and to the Vice President's comments, that makes a lot of sense in that a lot of these reports are provided in full by the Finance Department. They're pretty lengthy. I get briefed on them, the council gets briefed on them, and then we get briefed oftentimes a third time in here. And so to the extent, I believe the council members would agree, we can have it more tailored to BET and perhaps cut down on the length of the presentation that we've all already received, so that it's a bit more tailored. That would make a lot of sense to me, if it's a more kind of BET specific deal. And this, for clarification, this is a potential work plan that we're just receiving and filing right now. There's no formalized vote, given that we haven't even hired the person yet,
No,
right?
sir.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Priest-Henson?
One other quick thing to that point as well is I think just to name that it's important on both of our points, that I believe this is also going to make our meetings way more efficient. One of the things that I've experienced during my term is we get the information a little too late, and we tend to ask a lot of questions that people aren't necessarily prepared to answer. So this person not only would be able to work with giving us a more abridged version, specific and tailored to us, but also could get the information to us sooner. It doesn't mean that we won't have questions, but we'll be better informed and prepared to actively participate in the meeting, therefore making our meetings, not saying that our meetings are inefficient, but I think that'll make it a lot more efficient, have a better coordination and flow of communication, and probably won't have to use the newly adopted memo system that we're using to get information back and forth. That should eliminate that. That that will untax our clerk's office, it will untax the finance office, and so it should help off of us. This person is really a coordinator, so thank you for being in agreement with that, and so I would assume, Mr. President, that we will come with a more formal, final version that we can vote on that takes into account these things and narrow it down, and then we'll go from there quarter by quarter. It's new, it's different, but we're all on board, and this seems to make a lot of good sense now that we're here. So this is a win. Thank you.
Okay, is there any further discussion? All right, and I'll defer to the clerk for the appropriate action. Do we just move to the next item, or do we receive and file?
We'll receive and file this
All right,
discussion.
thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda is announcements. Does anybody have any updates other than the one that Commissioner Priest Stinson gave earlier on the hiring process? Okay, and we have no public comment to accept, and so I see no further business before the board, and without objection, we stand adjourned.